Okay, folks, grab a beanbag chair and a Dr. Pepper, sit yourselves down, and get ready for some real talk from old Unc Geriatric here. This conversation is going to be about as real as the fact that my body is rapidly failing me and is finding new and unique ways to fail me at the worst possible times. This conversation is going to be about as raw as the wounds on my emotional stability as I watch RAM prices skyrocket, knowing full well that I'm going to have to upgrade my son's desktop in the near future, and 32 gigs of DDR5 will probably cost more than the GPU. Today, we are going to talk about the subject that has absolutely infected PC and laptop gaming dialogues for a couple of years now with its vile and slime-covered tentacles. And no, I'm not referring to anime waifu tentacle body pillows, which I may or may not have a large collection of. I'm talking about VRAM. And my hot take, which I'm sure has some statistical and data-based flaws in it, is this. Stop listening to pundits and Reddit superchamps. Drown out the noise. 8 gigs of VRAM is completely fine, and you should never feel ashamed about having an 8 gig card. So let's get a few things out of the way first. Yes, I have seen Jared's Tech's video in which him, and I can't remember who he teams up with, but they did an exhaustive assessment and found that 8 gigs of VRAM does create limitations in higher end gameplay. Now, what do I mean by higher end gameplay? I mean textures loaded to the hilt, high resolution, that sort of thing. Now, I have personally witnessed a new AAA game bust through my 4080's 12 gigs of VRAM. More VRAM is objectively better. I'm not going to deny that. But there are some serious caveats that all of the VRAM snobs will refuse to acknowledge that make 8 gig cards make a lot more sense for many people. And no, I am absolutely not excusing NVIDIA's horrific treatment of consumers and the back alley, shady, dirty syringe jabbing that they've been doing since the 40 series cards came out. And finally, yes, it's easy for me to talk since I have a 12 gig card, but members of my family in this house I live in use cards with 8 gigs of VRAM. My best friend, up until recently, used an 8 gig card to play everything and anything at 1440p and 4K and had a wonderful experience. My favorite laptops in the past few years have all had 8 gigabytes of VRAM, whether it's the 3070 Ti's in the Legion 5 Pro or the 8 gig 6800S in the 2022 G14. They all played games at 1440p without issue. To me, the facts clearly show that more than 8 gigs of VRAM is ideal, but they don't ever talk about the different people and their use cases, their situations, or just the real world experiences. Factors like the types of games people play, the amounts of money that they have to spend, and what other parts of a laptop they prioritize more, whether it's a really nice OLED screen or build quality. I'm one of those people who might actually choose a 5070 laptop with an all-metal build and an OLED over a 5080 laptop with a cheap plastic build and a muddy screen. I've done that. I had a 4080 laptop. I think it was the Gigabyte, the 17X, the Aura 17X. I returned that and stuck with a G14 with the 6800S because the screen was much better. All of this ends up getting lost in the conversation whenever someone online screams about how 8 gigs of VRAM is the devil, how it broke into your home, kicked your dog, and made a sandwich without cleaning up after. And I'd like to talk about it and reassure you, all of you, that an 8 gig VRAM gaming laptop is going to be perfectly fine for all the games you want to play. So the first thing we need to establish is that VRAM isn't everything. There are a number of components that go into a GPU, components like compute units, tensor cores, units that have far more of an effect on performance than an extra 4 to 8 gigs of video memory. Think back a few years. Would you have preferred the 12 gigabyte 3060 or an 8 gigabyte 3060 Ti? The GPU's ability to rasterize will always far outweigh the available memory on board. This is especially true for gaming laptops, and we need to establish something right now. The 4060/5060 and the 4070/5070 laptop GPUs are awesome 1080p cards. As we can see here, and thank you very much, Tom's Hardware, for the thorough analysis, an 8 gig card plays all games at pretty high FPS. Now, yes, I know this is a desktop card comparison, but we're looking at memory impact, not wattage and die model, you filthy dirty Poindexters. The extra VRAM does result in some additional FPS across the board, but the interesting thing here is that the 1% lows remain pretty consistent in correlation with the average. Now, extra VRAM absolutely does come into play when you dial the settings up to ultra, where textures start gobbling up available memory like crazy. Clearly, my argument isn't that extra VRAM isn't important. I mean, of course it is. And shame on NVIDIA for intentionally causing this disparity. My argument is, however, that every single game is perfectly playable and enjoyable with high FPS using an 8GB card. Even at 1080p Ultimate, every single game is playable, even heavy hitters like Black Myth. The bottom line is that you can have a perfectly fine, enjoyable experience gaming with a laptop 40 or 50, 60/70 in 2025 and beyond. My answer will remain the same a few years from now, too. And before any of you VRAM zealots jump down my throat, let's talk about a few reasons why someone might pick up a gaming laptop with an 8GB card in it. And the first is about as obvious as my midlife crisis-driven depression and sense of hopelessness: price. For under 1,300 Canadian, you can have a very respectable 5060 laptop with some 5070 models well below the 2,000 mark. Now, for someone who absolutely needs a laptop for portability and wants to play modern games at a decent price, this is a pretty darn good value, especially when you compare it to models that have more than 8 gigs of VRAM. Now, here in Canada, the closest you can get is, surprise, surprise, my gorgeous little 170-watt 4080 Beast for $22.99 plus tax. If you want a 50 series with 12 gigs of VRAM, you're starting at $2,500. So my friends, if you are contemplating a 5060 or 5070 laptop and are on a budget, and someone has the audacity to tell you to spend more for a 5070 Ti, you have my old man permission to tell them to go pound sand. A lot of laptop purchasers are on budgets, and they have other expenses like school and life, and a 5060 laptop will fit that budget and will carve through every available game at 1080p now and in the future. And by the way, if someone tells you, like they've told me, you're an idiot for getting a laptop, why don't you just get a desktop because you get twice the performance for the same price? Okay, fair enough. How about you take your desktop to a coffee shop and play a round of Civilization 6 while you're, just relaxing? How about you take your desktop to class for 6 hours of lectures and then come back to your dorm room and play a game? Or how about you bring your desktop on a bus back to wherever you live with your parents or whatever after you've done school for the week and you want to head home for the weekend and you just want to play games? Which one is going to work better? There are reasons why people get laptops, and I'm tired of the desktop versus laptop argument. Everyone has a use case, and sometimes those use cases are not compatible. Yeah, a desktop is going to perform a lot better for the same price, but you're not getting something just because of the performance. You're getting something for the portability, the built-in screen, being able to use it for a multitude of scenarios, not just one or the other. Now, the next reason is individual use case. Here's where I will flip-flop a tiny bit and suggest that the 4060/5060 or the 4070/5070 are absolutely perfect for smaller, thinner, and lighter laptops that prioritize battery life and portability over performance. I'm not suggesting that you're a fool for getting, say, a Strix or a Predator 18 with a 5060 in it, because a gorgeous 18-inch screen does wonders for immersion. But with the artificial voltage limitations NVIDIA puts on those cards, your, say, 80-watt 5060 in a 14-inch laptop will perform about the same, maybe slightly slower than a 125-watt in an 18-inch laptop. These 8 gig cards are made for lower powered portable devices. The college kids wanting something that can last through 8 hours of classes and note taking and also annihilate Warzone at night. The professional who does a lot of travel for work but still needs to find new ways to nail Pan Am and Cyberpunk after the office. The emotionally bankrupt late 40s dad who has 3 kids and can't find any joy in his life aside from punching himself in the groin repeatedly just to feel something, anything, but still has to move around the house on weekends to play Fortnite with his friends. These people are made for the 60 and 70 series 8 gig cards, and those cards will suit them just fine. Do I think that pairing a 5060 with a QHD screen is asking for trouble? Yes and no. Again, people do more with their gaming laptops than just game, and a QHD screen is just awesome for productivity. Under normal circumstances, running a game at a lower resolution like a 1080p on a QHD screen would be a bad idea. But on a 14 to 16 inch laptop, it absolutely isn't noticeable unless you're really looking for it. I just think back to when I had the 2022 G14 with the 6800S. I did this all the time with Fortnite. I played it at 1200p, and it looked just as sharp and amazing as 1600p, especially when you use DLSS and anti-aliasing and all those other technologies come into the picture. And again, I'm not going to try to gaslight anybody. Of course, playing at native resolution is preferable. But if I have to choose native 1600p at low settings or 1080 to 1200p at medium high, I'm going with the latter every time, and it's going to look really good. Like, I cannot stress this enough. It's especially a 14 to 16 inch screen. You're not going to notice when you lower the resolution on a full screen game. Just try it out. I mean, if you really want to get deep, you can start doing like lossless scaling and all that crazy stuff. But even just having your desktop at native resolution and in a full screen game, lowering it to the 1080p equivalent, you will not notice any difference in quality, especially when you're using things like DLSS and different anti-aliasing technologies and all of that good stuff. Look, it's late and I have to make dinner for my family, clean up afterwards, take the dog out, and then come back and stare at a screen for 20 minutes because I can't decide which game I'm not in the mood to play tonight. I'm going to end this video here. Now, this is obviously just the opinion of one random old dude, but I just wanted to reassure you guys that your 8 gig card isn't drastically hobbled, it isn't going to make AAA games unplayable, and isn't a situation where you're a fool for getting one. Anyone on Reddit or anywhere else that tells you that with only 8 gigs of VRAM, you're going to have a stuttering mess or it's just not going to work properly and the frames are going to drop, they are being disingenuous and they're being overly dramatic. Your 4060, 5060, 4070, and 5070 gaming laptops, either the ones you already own or the ones you're eyeing for purchase, will give you an amazing experience for years to come. Ignore the noise, ignore the snapperheads yelling, "Oh, just save up more money in the current destroyed economy and financial environment and just spend 800 to 1,000 more. What's wrong with you?" And just be confident in your choice. The 60 and 70 series 8 gig laptops are 1080p champs. No, now and years from now. Just get the one you like and enjoy the heck out of that. With that, I hope you have an amazing Christmas break. And if you are getting a gaming laptop, please enjoy it for me, regardless of what GPU is in it. And maybe come back and let me know how you're experiencing it. If maybe I'm completely wrong in my assessment and you're regretting everything, or maybe it's the best thing you've ever had and you're just having a lot of fun playing games on it. Come back and share your experience. I'd love to hear it.